excited to talk to your face.
I'm excited to talk to your face too. It's been a minute.
How have you been? How was the rest of the stay at the lake and the travel back with the baby? Just you and the baby. You want to tell us about it?
It was wonderful, the stay. It was also weird. I had a group of friends visit me there. Or not, they weren't visiting me, but they came and I was already there. We were all getting together to celebrate one of our friends getting married, and so it was just strange to like be at my grandma's house but not hanging out with my family, because we were obviously hanging out as a group and like doing our celebration thing. It was so fun. It was really great to see them all, but it was also strange to be like kind of in two places at once.
Yeah.
So yeah. And 2 weeks is a long time to be not at home. So I'm excited to be home again. And the travel went really well. Like, just honestly, no complaints. We had a layover and the baby did great. He was crawling all around the airport terminal. At one point I was like, am I going to keep getting him from the end of this aisle of seating, or am I just gonna get our stuff and walk behind him as he crawls away? And so that's what I did. So we were walking down the hallway of the airport terminal. Luckily it wasn't a very busy time, so that was fine. But yeah, it was fun. It went really smoothly. No complaints.
Oh, good.
Sincerely.
Wow.
Yeah. Still exhausting and like a lot, and yeah, but he didn't cry his way through a flight. He didn't try to escape the whole time. He was just interested in the things around, and there was one time when I, like, as a last ditch effort to keep him from doing all of those things, like just pulled out a boob and was like, how about nursing? And he was like, oh, okay, sounds great. So that was, you know, top tip. When in doubt, pull out a boob. How are you doing?
Good. I'm great. Yeah.
That's so nice.
I didn't do any traveling or things like that, so I don't feel like I have anything to report. I just wanted to hear about your stuff, but yeah, I'm fine. I'm good.
Good to hear. What are we doing today?
Well, we recently had that wonderful talk with your mom while you were all at the cabin, and I just edited it these days, and I had lots of thoughts about it afterwards.
I really would love to hear your thoughts.
I hope I'm going to remember all of them. I should have written them down while I was editing, but it didn't. So we'll see how this goes.
Yeah. So we talked about being a grandparent with my mom and how she's experienced that and how it's changed her role and added a role to her roles and added a level of interaction and, I'll say, like, responsibility and impact to her life and experience. It was really interesting to hear her talk about it.
Yes.
Because we've talked a little bit about it, but we haven't actually had that conversation before. So it was really cool to have that and capture it. I can't wait to listen back to it. I have not listened back to it yet.
It was really cool for me. I didn't say a lot. I got to just lean back and like be a fly on the wall for this conversation between you both, where I think a lot of processing even happened, and that was just so interesting. And I felt privileged, really. Like I'm really grateful to both of you for doing that and sharing that, because that was vulnerable and I think very valuable for many people. It was for me, and very interesting. So thank you.
Well, thanks for listening to it.
And especially since I've told you this before, but I want to say it again, especially since time was of such value there when both of you were visiting with family. And your mom even said it in the episode that she was a little bit torn between all the things and so hard. Yeah. So I appreciated a lot, both of you taking that time.
I think it was a really just such a moment to capture being there and in that environment and having that conversation in that environment. I think is something that we couldn't have created in any other space. So
I'm really
too. Glad that we made it happen there.
Yeah, I think it added
how it went.
Yeah, a real another layer to it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So what were my thoughts? Well, one of the reasons it was so impressive to me is because I was looking at something that I want, that I am striving for, aiming for. And there was a moment where Beth asked me, so what, I don't remember exactly, but like, what are your thoughts about it? Are you planning on, I don't know. And I got really nervous and I was like, well, that's a loaded question because, which, you know, I could have phrased it that differently. That's just what came out because I got nervous and I've noticed this a lot since we've been doing this podcast and keep reflecting on it. I think I am sometimes overly protective and maybe a little more than I need to be of other people. Like I decided to talk about things and be make myself vulnerable on this platform, on this podcast. I cannot make that decision for other people. So I'm always very careful, or try to be as best as I can, careful concerning other people. So like, of course,
talking about grandparenting involves other people.
Making a baby involves another person in my life. So things like that. Yeah, so I haven't quite figured out yet how to navigate that. Right, and that came up for me again in this episode. And yeah, so again, now I'm thinking, how much can I say? But I think I'm just going to say it, and then maybe you can tell me if you think it was too much, and then I can always take it out. Yeah. No, but I think it's not. I think it's fine.
The magic of editing.
Yes. So all of us have things with our parents, right? Like everyone, no one is perfect. So every child has something that happened in their... How can I phrase this?
I'll put it this way.
Thank you.
Which may be helpful. I was listening to a book on tape, and I don't remember what it was, so I'm sorry, but it was about conversations that mothers have with their daughters and the interactions between mothers and daughters. And it's super appropriate here because you literally have every conversation you have with a person is had in the context of the other conversations you've had with that person, right? So the relationship that you have built, that you and I have built, right? You and me, Hannah. Every time we talk, it's in the context of the other conversations that we've had and the experiences that we have had together. And if you think about a parent and a child in that context, for the child, it's literally their entire life experience.
Yeah.
You do not have another relationship in your life you know, if you have had a consistent relationship with your parent, that has been longer. That has more context. So there is so much, and it's such a close relationship, and I mean that in like a functionally close, right? So like you literally have to do every day with that person for a certain amount of time. And it's also one that changes constantly because you start as a baby and you end up as an adult. And those are two, you know, opposite end of the spectrum states of being as a person.
Yeah.
So this relationship is not only one of the longest you've ever had, if not the longest, but it's also had a lot of change. There's just so much context. There's so much there. You're so dependent on your parent as a child. And the parent, there's a lot riding on that child doing well in that child because it reflects on them. So it's just a very loaded relationship, and it's also just a very long relationship with a lot of context and a lot of history. So understandable that that's going to be, there are going to be things in there where there's discomfort or even resentment, or there was resentment and now there's not, or there was conflict and now there's not. But then how do we redefine our context to be without that conflict? And now that we were, you know, it's just a whole shebang. It's a whole thing. It's a whole mood.
It's a whole mood. Yeah. Yeah. And I just want to, so I love self-reflection, working on myself, coaching, therapy, all of it. I love it so much. Mm-hmm. So as much as I do that with me, just me, myself, and I, I am also a fan of doing it with all the relationships, close relationships that I have in my life. So like I am a fan of spouse. What's the word that I want? Like couples counseling? Therapy, couples counseling, couples coaching, whichever variation you choose. And just as much, I really want to do like family coaching, family therapy with each one of my family members, like with my mom and my dad, with my brother, all of us together. Like I want to pack them all up and be like, we're gonna do like an intense 3-week thing. And so like, painting a picture here, being very extreme. That's like where I'm at and what I want. I'm like, let's dig all the shit up and look at it and like feel the pain together and then heal together and get out on the other side together and just work on our communication and our understanding of each other and all the things. So that's where I'm at. And what becomes more clearly the more I think and talk about having children. Because that then, as we spoke about in this episode that we're referring to, adds a whole nother layer. And just as much as I am aiming to work as much on myself beforehand as I can to not put my pain and stuff on my child, but work through it so that I don't have to pass it on. As much as I want to do that, I got lost here. So
you also want to heal whatever is out there in your family before adding to it.
Yes.
That.
Because so I can do, for me, I have to do that with me. And I can't be like, well, you have to do this work with me so I can heal here. That's not my point. My point is, in order for their relationship with my child and in order for them understanding why I might do things differently and not be hurt by that. There was, I think that's one of the quotes I noted when I edited. You said in the episode, like, me choosing to do it differently doesn't mean that I didn't like the way you did it. Something like that.
Yeah. Isn't a judgment on the way that you did it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Things like that I would like to address before and work on that. And again, work on our communication style.
Oh, Jesus. My leg fell asleep.
I saw you struggling and I was wondering, should I just keep going and she'll work it out? Does she need me to stop?
No, I can't. Every time I move it, it moves a cup on a frame over there. And so it keeps making noise. We're back. Sorry
you
about
okay?
that. I'm okay. My leg fell asleep and it really hurt. I had to move around a bunch and it was very noisy.
I think it was actually useful to my tangent that I was on. I'm gonna come at it again.
Tangent. Okay.
So, with all the things that you and Beth talked about in the last episode, what I was so impressed by, what I most took away from it, which is, of course, because I'm looking at it through my glasses, is that you guys have found a really, I don't want to say good because that puts a value on it. You've found a way that really works really well for you to communicate with each other, to express what each other is feeling, and then the other one understands it and knows where that's coming from. And that you have gotten to that point because you've done the work. You have talked about past things and grown some understanding of each other. And I think that's what I was trying to explain, that I want to do some healing and like past work in order to improve our communication. So when we get to those situations that I ask for something that, so like I want my mom to be involved in childcare, for example. I know that she's really excited about that and I love the idea and I think it's really great. Yeah. And I am pretty sure that how I'm going to want to do things is going to be somewhat different to how she did it, and so how it would be come naturally to her. So I'm going to have to ask for things, to do it a certain way or to not do this or whatever. And for where we are right now, I'm concerned about her taking that as judgment and me not finding the right words without, I'm always really concerned about hurting people's feelings.
Well, it's not an enjoyable experience to hurt someone's feelings.
Yeah. And yeah, I think if we were to do some work, and I'm missing some words here that I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah, so my mom and I have done, and we, let's be real here. We don't have a perfect relationship. We definitely upset each other.
What even is that? Let's
regularly, right?
That.
Like, so it's not that. It's not that. Like, that's not the goal, I don't think. But we do have a practice of, and both of us have been really intentional about doing some meta communication, right? Like communicating about how we're communicating about what we want to communicate, and doing that in a way that where I expect that she's trying to love me the best that she can, and she expects that I'm trying to love her the best that I can.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important in most every relationship. The Gottman Institute talks about that sometimes. But that's something that is hard to implement a practice of, right? Because it's just hard. It's so easy, especially with all that history and all of the context, to think that what someone expresses, there's some hidden meaning of like, I think you did it wrong and I'm really upset about it, and so you have to do it differently this time, right? Like you have to do this because the way you did it before really messed me up or something, you know? And it's a sensitive topic.
Yeah.
To begin with, you know, our experience of our childhood and our experience of our family. So, anyway, I don't know. I'm sorry. I feel like I just derailed.
Meta communication.
Right.
Thank you for that word.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, that is exactly what I've been trying to get at. And I've been trying to do that and implement that and make a habit of it, and have been noticing that, and that is something that I tried to express and somewhat hinted at in the episode with Beth, that I just realized that the other person is not there yet. Or I don't even want to use yet. They're the concept. Not on the same page. Yeah, the concept of meta communication.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't make sense to them, maybe. I don't know. I definitely have a head start on this whole reflecting myself and doing all this work and getting help from coaches or therapists or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
Having meta communication conversations with other people that I have relationships with. So like with Megan, I've practiced this a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I don't know. There's a lot I don't know, but I don't think that my parents have that. And my brother doesn't have that.
No.
So that's kind of where I'm at right now. And that in the beginning was difficult to accept that I need, like, yes, it's okay for me to try to initiate that and propose that, but then I also need to be patient and accept where everyone else is at, and that's just where we are at right now in our journey together as a family, and that not everyone is interested in doing a family
3-week-long
camp
deep dive
therapy
into family therapy. Oh gosh. Yeah, you definitely need buy-in to do a 3-week-long thing, or even to just have the conversation. You have to be on board. There has to be an internal motivating factor for that to be
so like
possible and productive.
We'll be in a discussion and it'll get to a point that I feel like we're not getting anywhere because we are not speaking the same language. What I'm saying is you're not understanding the way I am, and my intention is in the other way around. I'm not understanding what you were trying to tell me. So then it often gets to a point where I say, I feel like we're not getting anywhere and we're not going to be able to resolve this, and we need to just leave it here where it is right now. And I would love for us to go to therapy together. And then they won't understand, like those two things won't connect, and they won't understand what the family therapy
how A
thing
needs to be
has to do with what we're trying to resolve right now, and why it like don't change the subject, maybe even. Yeah. Did that make sense? Because they're so focused on the thing right now, and I'm trying to do the meta thing. And I'm not able to take them with me to communicate to them what I'm thinking, what I'm seeing. And that's exactly that, because we're not speaking the same language, and I would like help of a third party to help us get to the same language.
You need a translator.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, I think that's an incredibly common experience, because families are complicated, and relationships are complicated, and having conversations is complicated.
Yeah.
And so I definitely think, and that's an experience I've had with other members of my family. Not necessarily, I don't usually end the conversation in suggesting therapy, but that's not a terrible idea.
I just get so frustrated that we don't understand each other.
It's really frustrating.
Yeah.
Maybe, and one thing that having a baby does is bring up a bunch of stuff.
Exactly.
So it might be that it'll be the other way around, right? It might be that the baby is there and feelings are happening, and then meta-communication starts happening in some form or another.
Yeah, that sounds
like a miracle to me. Or there's a huge breakdown in communication, and then
that was my motivation why I wanted to practice the communication now. So when things come up, because I know that they will on all sides, we know how to talk to each other about it, and we actually understand what the other one is saying.
Yeah, and I would imagine, and in my case this is true, even though I do have good relationships with I'll speak to my relationship with my mom. We have a good relationship, and there are still boundaries of what we discuss and what we don't discuss, because I know having a certain discussion is too much for me for whatever reason, right? Like this topic is something that I think we won't agree on, and so I just skip it with her, because I know that I think what I think, and my plan is what I plan to do, and she doesn't need to be involved in that aspect of it, and so we don't talk about that part. I can't think of a specific example, but boundaries are a huge part of parenting around other people anyway. And sometimes the boundaries that you have to set aren't necessarily the ones you would want to set in relationships that aren't as able to navigate difficult topics.
Yeah. Yeah, so that is something that came up for me personally.
Thank you for sharing.
Thanks for helping me out with trying to share this. I hope that it was understandable for
I think it was incredibly
those listening.
I think a huge number of people will be able to identify with that experience and the nervousness that involves, and the frustration and the like hope and the like, we can do it. It's going to happen. We can do it. I think all aspects of that will be #relatable.
Yeah.
Oh, cringe. Cool. Well,
It's
thank you so
fun.
much for being vulnerable with us today.
Thank you.
I love you very much.
I love you too. Thanks for being the person that I can practice this with. Thanks for our meta communication and all the years of practice. Practice.
You.
Practice.
Ugh. We would not be here today.
Yes. And this podcast has brought up a lot of things for us too.
Oh yeah, we've had whole
then
new lovely experiences around conflict and meta communication.
Yeah. And only because we had this base of many years of practice, we were able to navigate it well and quickly, I think.
Right. I think quickly is the key word there.
Yeah, because we needed to.
Right. Well, and like you can figure this out on the fly. You can have conflict and figure out. But because we'd done it before, it went a little faster. We had more of a shorthand.
Yeah.
Which is helpful. Saves a lot of
love you,
emotion
man.
and a lot of time. I love you. I love you very, very much. Okay. I think that it's time to say goodbye.
Yes.
Thank you again for talking about all the things. And I'll talk to you again next week.
Bye.
Bye.